Hi, welcome back. Good to see you. This is an original story from Hidden Revenge Family, and it took a turn you truly didn't see coming. Let's get into it.
I had been gone for 8 months. Not a vacation, not a retreat. A deployment that came with sand in my boots, bruises on my ribs, and a clearance badge that didn't allow casual small talk. When the military finally released me back into civilian airspace, I didn't ask for a parade. I asked for silence. And a shower that didn't smell like metal. The first message waiting on my phone came from my younger sister, Sloane. Grandpa's will reading is in Colorado. Tomorrow morning, I'll drive. No welcome home. No glad you're alive. Just logistics. Classic Sloane. Efficient, polished, emotionally hollow like a designer handbag. That's all logo and no substance. I stared at the message for a while, then typed, "Send location. I'll be there." Family obligations were like landmines. You didn't step on them because you liked them. You stepped on them because ignoring them could cost you something later. The next morning, Sloane's SUV rolled up outside my temporary apartment. She stepped out wearing a cream wool coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her hair was perfect. Her smile was bright. Her eyes did not reach it. "Elena," she said, hugging me lightly, careful not to wrinkle herself. "You look strong." Translation: "You look inconveniently alive." I climbed into the passenger seat. The car smelled like leather and expensive perfume. I smelled like unscented soap and government laundry detergent. We made an interesting contrast. Colorado greeted us with gray skies and a warning sign for snow. Sloane ignored it. Of course she did. Warning signs were for other people. We drove up into the mountains. Pines leaned under growing weight. The sky pressed down low and heavy. The radio played pop songs about love and breakups. Sloane hummed along. I watched the road. "Did Grandpa say anything before he passed?" I asked. Sloane kept her eyes forward. "He left instructions. Lawyers handle everything. Clean, clean, and simple." Another phrase she liked. Life was not clean. People were not simple. Money made both worse. The snow started as soft flakes, then fast needles, then a wall. Sloane turned up the heater. I watched the fuel gauge. Half tank. Fine. But the road ahead narrowed. No guardrails. Just drop-offs and trees. "You sure this route is right?" I asked. "It's what the GPS says," she replied. The GPS screen blinked once, then froze, then went black. I reached for my phone. No signal, no data, no helpful little map dot. "Storm's messing with reception," Sloane said too calmly. That was when the SUV jerked. A loud metallic crack. The wheels screamed. The car skidded sideways. I grabbed the handle. Sloane yanked the wheel hard. Too hard. The SUV slammed into a snowbank, tilting at an angle that made gravity feel personal. Silence followed, heavy, pressurized. I tested my arms. Fine. Shoulders sore. I moved my right leg. A white-hot spike of pain shot up my body. "Damn it," I hissed. Sloane unbuckled slowly. "Are you okay?" "My leg's not." She climbed out. Snow blasted in as she opened the door. Cold air punched my lungs. I forced myself to breathe slow. Sloane walked around the front of the car. I heard her boots crunch. Then nothing. No urgency. No panic. Just quiet. I pushed open my door. Pain nearly knocked me out, but training kicked in. "You don't scream, you assess. Can you help me out?" I called. Sloane appeared in the doorway. Snow stuck to her hair. Her expression wasn't fear, it was calculation. "Elena," she said softly. "There's no signal, no cars coming. This storm will get worse. Then help me into the back. We'll stay warm. Wait it out." She didn't move. I stared at her. "Sloane, my leg is injured." She looked down at me the way people look at problems they don't want to deal with. Then she said it. "You've served your country long enough. Now serve your family." I blinked. "What?" Her voice stayed calm, polished, like she was explaining a business plan. "Grandpa's estate. 50 million. The company. Everything. It goes to the eldest grandchild. You. Unless you're unavailable." I stared at her. Snow fell between us. "You're joking," I said. Sloane reached into the car and pulled my bag out. Then my phone, then my wallet. She checked each item like an airport security agent. "You'll freeze out here," I said. "You can't be serious." She leaned closer, her breath warm against my ear. "You always were the family's soldier," she whispered. "Now be useful one last time." She straightened up, closed my door, and locked it from the outside. I pushed the handle. It didn't move. Sloan, I said steady. Open the door. She walked to the driver's side. Sloan. The engine started. The SUV rocked slightly as she pulled it out of the snowbank. The tire was damaged but moving, barely. I banged on the window. She didn't look at me. The car disappeared into the curtain of white. Silence returned. Pure, violent, absolute. I sat there in the snow, breath slow, leg burning skin, already numb. I wasn't panicking, I was calculating. Inventory: 1 broken leg. Sub-zero temperature, no phone, no wallet, no car, no sister. I reached into my jacket pocket. My field medical kit was still there. Of course it was. I never went anywhere without it. Because some people pack lipstick. I pack survival. Before I started working on my leg, before I started dragging myself towards shelter, a question settled in my mind. Sharp and clear: if someone who shared your blood was willing to leave you to die for money, how far would you go to make sure they never touched a single dollar of it? I tightened my grip on the kit and got to work. I tore open the medical kit with my teeth and spat the plastic aside. My fingers worked on autopilot. Morphine injector, antiseptic wipe, compression bandage, a splint made of lightweight polymer, standard issue, designed for people who didn't have the luxury of waiting for rescue. I stabbed the injector into my thigh, not the injured leg. You learn that early. The burn hit fast, then warmth. Pain didn't vanish, but it stepped back enough to let me function. I pulled my pants leg open. The knee was swollen and already turning ugly colors. Ligaments probably torn, not life-threatening, just inconvenient. And tonight inconvenience could kill. I cleaned the area, wrapped the joint tight, locked the splint in place. Every movement sent a spike through my teeth, but I didn't scream. I had learned a long time ago that screaming wastes oxygen and dignity. When I finished, I flexed my foot. Still had circulation. Good. Next priority: shelter. The storm had thickened. Wind slapped my face like it was offended I was still conscious. I stepped out of the SUV and immediately sank knee-deep in snow. My injured leg protested. I ignored it. I grabbed what I could from the car before hypothermia got creative. A blanket, a water bottle, a road flare. The glove compartment held napkins, a broken pen, and a pack of gum. Sloan had style, not preparation. I left the SUV. Sitting inside it would only delay freezing. Movement meant heat. Heat meant life. The terrain sloped downward toward a line of trees. Trees meant windbreak, possibly a structure, possibly a road. I moved, slow, controlled, each step measured. Snow swallowed sound. The world shrank to breath, pain, and forward motion. After maybe 20 minutes, shapes appeared through the storm. Not trees. A metal tower. Then a small concrete building beside it. A forgotten communications relay station. I smiled for the first time since the crash. The door was locked. Of course it was. I used the road flare like a crowbar. One hinge surrendered. The door gave in with a scream of metal. Inside was cold but still. No wind, no snow. A generator sat silent in the corner. Old equipment lined the walls, dust thick, but power cables still connected. I dragged the door shut. Not fully sealed, but enough. Then I saw the emergency radio panel. Analog. Military grade. Ugly, reliable. Exactly my taste. I sat down, braced my leg, and switched it on. Static. I cycled through frequencies. One by one. Most were dead. Some hissed faintly. Then I reached a channel I hadn't used in 2 years. A private emergency frequency assigned to my old unit. I pressed the transmit button. Echo 7-1, this is Elena Ramirez. Emergency traffic. Silence. Then more static. I tried again. Calm, controlled, no drama. Echo 7-1. If anyone is on this channel, respond. 10 seconds later, a voice cut through the noise. Ramirez. That better not be a prank. Captain Miller. Same dry tone, same lack of warmth. Exactly what I needed. Miller, I said. I need a dark pickup. There was a pause. You're not on any list. You're not deployed. Where are you? Colorado mountains. No GPS. Storm. I've been left here intentionally. Another pause. Shorter this time. Status: leg injury. Stable. No civilian authorities contacted. No phone. No ID. I need to stay officially missing for now. You're asking for a black zone recovery. I'm asking for you to trust me. Silence again. I could hear faint keyboard clicks on his end. Probably checking whether he was about to risk his career for me. Reason, he asked. My sister tried to kill me for inheritance. Miller exhaled slowly. Not surprised. Just annoyed at paperwork. Send whatever coordinates you can. I looked around. No GPS, but the relay station had an old locator tag on the wall. I read it aloud. He typed. I'll dispatch a private team, he said. No police. No medical logs. No records. You'll be a ghost until you say otherwise. That's what I need. Stay alive, Ramirez. The line went dead. I leaned back against the cold wall. Shelter secured. Rescue pending. Official existence suspended. I drank a mouthful of water. Small sips. No waste. Time slowed. The storm raged outside. Wind hammered the metal roof. Snow built against the door. My leg throbbed, but the morphine held the edge. I closed my eyes not to sleep but to conserve energy. Somewhere down the mountain, Sloan was driving away. Probably calling lawyers. Probably crying just enough to look convincing. Probably already planning how to spend money that wasn't hers yet. She thought I was dead. That assumption was about to become her most expensive mistake. Warm air hit my face as the helicopter door slid open. 2 men in black gear lifted me without questions. No names, no paperwork, no comforting lies, just efficient hands and a stretcher. Miller's idea of compassion was getting things done without talking about feelings. The flight lasted long enough for the morphine to fade and reality to sharpen. When they carried me into the underground medical bay, bright lights replaced snow blindness. A doctor checked my leg, nodded once, and started working. No introductions, no small talk, just competence. Hours later, I lay in a clean bed with my knee stabilized, fresh bandages, and a quiet room that smelled like disinfectant and metal. A tablet sat on the table beside me. Miller stepped in, coffee in hand, no concern on his face, just logistics. You're officially unaccounted for, he said. No hospital records, no missing person report, no death certificate. To the world, you're misplaced luggage. Good, I said. He slid the tablet toward me. You got a visitor, digital only. The screen lit up. Mr. Sterling, my grandfather's lawyer, silver hair, calm smile, the kind of man who charged by the minute and earned every dollar. Ms. Ramirez, he said. I was hoping you'd be alive for this call. So was I, replied. His eyes flickered with satisfaction. Your sister contacted me this morning. She claims you perished in an unfortunate accident en route to the will reading. Creative. She also asked how soon she could access the estate. Predictable. Sterling leaned forward. Before I answer her, I needed to speak with you. Privately. I nodded. He pressed a button. A document appeared on the screen. Your grandfather's will has a standard clause, he said. Assets pass to the eldest grandchild. That is you. No surprise. But there is a second layer, Sterling continued. A trust structure. Private. Sealed. Accessible only with a biometric confirmation. Another screen appeared. A logo, Ghost Logistics Group. I raised an eyebrow. Sterling smiled. For the last 5 years, a holding company known as Ghost Logistics has managed your grandfather's defense transport contracts. Routing, fleet procurement, security compliance, high-level operations. I know, I said. Sterling didn't miss a beat. Of course you do. I had built Ghost Logistics from encrypted laptops in foreign bases between missions and security briefings. I ran it under a classified identity, no photos, no public records, no known association to the Ramirez family, just performance metrics and profit. $50 million in estate inheritance was pocket change compared to what Ghost controlled. Sterling cleared his throat. Your grandfather suspected instability within the family. He instructed me to ensure the operating control of Ghost Logistics transfers only to you, in person, with biometric confirmation. And if I'm dead, I asked. Sterling's eyes sharpened. Then Ghost goes into autonomous lock. No board access, no executive override, no family inheritance. No one touches it. Sloan thought she was stealing a parked car. She had no idea the engine had no keys. Does Sloan know any of this? I asked. She knows there is a company, Sterling said. She believes it is a passive asset. She does not know you are its architect, or that it cannot be accessed without you. I let that sink in. Some people inherit money, some people inherit power, and some people build power so quietly that even their own blood never sees it coming. Sterling adjusted his glasses. Your sister will request an emergency declaration of death if you remain missing. That process takes time, weeks, possibly months. She will try to act fast. She always does. What are your instructions? He asked. I looked at the ceiling. White, clean, still. Let her believe I'm gone, I said. Do not correct her. Do not stall her. Give her just enough rope to feel confident. Sterling smiled. Not kindly, professionally. Understood. The call ended. Miller stepped back into the room. Everything you needed, he asked. Yes, you'll stay here until you can walk. After that, you're on your own. Off-grid support only. No official resources. I wouldn't ask for more. He turned to leave, then stopped. One question, he said. Why not just report attempted murder and let the system handle it? I looked at him. Because the system would give her a lawyer, I said. And a plea deal. And a way out. I prefer certainty. Miller nodded once. No judgment, just acknowledgement. When he left, I picked up the tablet again. Sterling had left one final message. Sloan Ramirez requested immediate estate access meeting scheduled in 72 hours. I smiled. My sister was sprinting toward a finish line. She just didn't realize the track led straight into a wall. I stood for the first time without crutches on the fourth day. Pain pulsed in my knee, but stability mattered more than comfort. The doctor didn't congratulate me. He just checked the brace, nodded once, and walked out. In this place, progress was expected, not praised. Miller handed me a new phone. No brand markings, no tracking, no name attached to the number. Sterling uploaded remote access to your home security network, he said. You'll want to see this. I sat on the edge of the bed and unlocked the screen. A familiar living room filled the display. Marble floors, high ceilings, family portraits with smiles painted wide enough to hide fractures. The Ramirez estate. Camera feeds popped up one by one. Kitchen, office, front gate, hallway, study. Then the main room, Sloan. She stood in front of the fireplace wearing silk pajamas and a champagne flute like it was a trophy. Grant Whitlock stood behind her, hands on her waist. Expensive suit, cheap eyes, the kind of man who smiled with his teeth and calculated with everything else. I'd seen his name once in a classified financial crimes briefing. Mid-level fraud operator. Always one step ahead of charges. Always dating someone wealthier than himself. Now I knew why. Sloan laughed and leaned into him. You're sure it'll be fast, she asked. Grant kissed her neck. Once the lawyers declare her dead, the account's open. The company, the estate, everything. Sloan swirled her champagne. She was always so serious, so disciplined. It's almost poetic that she died doing what she loved. Grant smirked. Freezing alone in the mountains, yes. She sipped. Very on brand. My jaw stayed relaxed. No rage, no shaking. Emotion was a luxury. Information was fuel. Another voice entered the room. Martha Ramirez, my mother. She wore a black cardigan. No mourning clothes. No tears. Just comfortable fabric and expensive jewelry. She stepped into frame like she owned the house. Has Sterling confirmed? She asked. Sloan lifted the glass again. He says the legal process has started. We just need to wait. Martha exhaled, almost relieved. Good. I don't want delays. Investors get nervous. Grant chuckled. Investors don't need to know anything. Once we control the logistics group, we'll restructure, rebrand, sell off contracts. Easy money. Martha sat on the couch, crossing her legs. That company was built with family effort. It should benefit family. I stared at her. Family effort. Not a single one of them had any idea Ghost Logistics existed because I built it. Not inherited it. Not supervised it. Built it. Line by line, contract by contract. While they attended galas and complained about seating arrangements, Sloan walked to the camera angle near the staircase. She stared at her own reflection in the hallway mirror. She always got the attention, Sloan said quietly. Grandpa adored her. The military adored her. Everyone adored her. Grant stepped beside her. You won. Sloan smiled. I did. Martha's voice came from the background. Casual, cruel. She was a stiff child anyway. No softness, no warmth. At least now she's useful. Something cold settled in my chest. Not heartbreak, clarity. My sister had left me to die. My mother had approved the result. Grant was already planning how to strip what he believed was mine. They weren't grieving, they were organizing. I switched camera views. The study. Grant sat at my grandfather's desk later that evening. Laptop open, papers spread out, offshore banking websites on the screen. Multiple tabs, multiple countries, a digital spider web. He spoke on the phone. Yes. The Ramirez estate will clear soon. I want the shell accounts ready. Cayman, Belize, Singapore. Yes, all three. Pause. No, there's no risk. The sister is gone. I leaned closer to the screen. He typed numbers, opened encrypted folders, uploaded documents. He wasn't waiting for legal control. He was preloading the exit strategy. Grant Whitlock wasn't just a parasite. He was a parasite with a shovel already digging. Sloane walked into the study. I bought the dress, she said, the one for the announcement party. Grant looked up. Good, investors like confidence. She twirled once. $20,000. Grant grinned. Cheap marketing, Sloane kissed him. You're so good at this. Grant smiled. I'm good at opportunities. I saved the video feeds, timestamps, audio logs, metadata, all automatically archived through the system I had installed 2 years ago, under the excuse of security upgrades. They had lived under my cameras for years. They just never noticed. I set the phone down and leaned back. In the old life, I might have confronted them, yelled, asked why, demanded explanations from people who didn't deserve to speak. But this was simpler. They believed I was dead. That gave me time. They believed they were safe. That gave me leverage. They believed money was already theirs. That gave me proof. Miller stepped into the room. You've been watching for an hour, he said. I needed to confirm something. And they're not just celebrating, they're committing crimes in real time. Miller looked at the screen once. Financial fraud, conspiracy, premeditation, attempted murder, yes. He handed me a black folder. Your mobility clearance is approved. Transport is ready whenever you are. I stood, my knee held, the brace locked with a soft click. I picked up the phone. Somewhere inside that house, my sister was practicing her victory smile in a mirror, and I was done being invisible. I stepped off the private jet onto a small airfield outside Denver under a name that didn't exist in any civilian database. New ID, new clothes, new face in the system. Miller didn't hug goodbye. He just handed me a slim laptop. Everything Ghost Logistics touches runs through this, he said. Encrypted tunnels, financial access, internal security. I built it, I replied. He almost smiled. Then enjoy driving it again. A black SUV waited. No driver in uniform, just a man who didn't ask questions. We drove in silence toward a safe house tucked into the edge of a quiet suburb. Normal neighborhood. Lawns trimmed, dogs barking, people watering plants. None of them knew a war had just rolled into their zip code. Inside the house, I set up in the kitchen, coffee, laptop, security feeds, financial dashboards, legal documents. My knee rested on a chair brace still unpain-tolerable. First target understanding Grant's network. Ghost Logistics had always been clean. Government contracts demand compliance. I knew every audit, every report, every financial corridor. But Grant was already trying to route estate funds into offshore pipelines he controlled. He thought the estate was a pool of water. He didn't know it was connected to a dam I controlled. I logged into the Trust's provisional financial gateway. Sterling had left me a silent backdoor, a mirror channel. Anything Grant or Sloane initiated would reflect here. And there it was. A request to transfer $3 million into a Cayman shell account under a newly created corporation. Whitlock Holdings Limited. Grant was fast. I respected that. Wrong tool, wrong battlefield. I approved the request, not blocked it, not flagged it, approved it. The money moved. A second later, I opened a hidden Ghost Logistics compliance layer, one designed for internal threat detection. I tagged the transaction as suspect, not externally, internally, invisible to Grant, visible to me. Then I widened the channel. I opened a corridor into additional estate liquidity. Not enough to trigger Sterling's alarms, just enough to make Grant think the vault door was already loose. He wouldn't just steal, he would overreach. Next step, identity exposure. Grant was using Sloane's authorization to open accounts. That meant every transaction carried her signature, her name, her biometric estate token, her fingerprints all over the crime. I didn't have to frame her. She was doing that herself. I watched the camera feed. Grant was on the phone again. Yeah, baby, the first transfer worked, he said. We're good. We can push the larger blocks tomorrow. Sloane laughed. I knew it. I knew we were smarter than them. Grant smirked. You're smarter than them. I just drive. He didn't drive. He siphoned. But parasites always convince the hosts they're partners. I opened a second screen IRS Criminal Investigation Liaison portal. One of the perks of having built ghost compliance systems for federal contracts. I didn't send anything yet. I just prepared a folder: transaction logs, camera footage, audio, timestamps, biometric authorization traces. Everything neat, everything undeniable. A gift-wrapped case file, but not yet. Because the best traps aren't sprung at the first step. They're sprung when the prey feels safe enough to stop looking down. 3 days passed. I slept little, ate simple, moved only when necessary, watched everything. Grant escalated. 7 million moved. 10, 15. Each time I approved. Each time I flagged. Each time the digital footprint deepened. Meanwhile, Sloane went shopping. Camera feed showed her in designer boutiques. Bags, shoes, jewelry. She posed in mirrors, sending photos to friends. My personal favorite was the moment she held a gold watch to her wrist and said, "Time finally likes me." I clipped that audio too. Not for evidence, for satisfaction. On the 4th day, Sterling called. "Your sister wants to host a formal inheritance announcement," he said. "A celebration, investors, partners, public affirmation of control." "Let her," I said. She requested access to the house and company headquarters for the event. "Approve it." Sterling hesitated. "You're certain she needs a stage?" Sterling understood. He'd been around wealthy families long enough to know when not to ask questions. That night, Grant pushed the largest transaction yet. $25 million, offshore, routed through 3 countries, cleaned through cryptocurrency mixers, and all of it authorized by Sloane's estate credentials. Grant leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. "We're set," he said. "No one can trace this." Sloane kissed him. "To our future." They clinked champagne glasses. I didn't toast. I copied the final log. Then I closed the financial gateway and locked Ghost Logistics' core systems. Not permanently, just enough. Grant would wake up tomorrow and discover he couldn't move another dollar, not because the system was broken, because the real owner had returned to the controls. I shut the laptop. My knee still hurt. My body still carried storm scars. My sister still believed I was a frozen memory on a mountain. But every dollar she spent, every crime she signed, every lie she smiled through, had been recorded, time-stamped, and sealed. Some people think revenge means blood. They've never seen what a federal fraud case does to a life. I poured myself a cup of coffee. Tomorrow Sloane would rehearse her speech for the inheritance party, and I had already written the ending. I watched the front gates open on my phone while tightening the strap on my knee brace. Luxury cars rolled into the driveway like a parade for people who had never done anything worth celebrating. Valets in black gloves opened doors, guests stepped out wrapped in perfume silk, and the belief that money erased consequence. Inside the house, every light was on. Crystal chandeliers, fresh white flowers, waiters carrying silver trays, a string quartet playing music that sounded expensive and emotionally empty. My family had always loved aesthetics. Morality never made the guest list. Sloane stood at the center of it all. She wore the $20,000 dress Grant had approved like a business expense, deep red, backless, designed to command attention and forgiveness at the same time. Her hair was pulled up, her smile was polished, her eyes were bright with victory. Grant stayed near her shoulder, greeting investors and lawyers with the easy charm of a man who believed the world was a slot machine that always paid out if you knew where to press. Martha floated from group to group, playing the grieving mother role with delicate efficiency, hand on heart, soft sigh. Eyes misted just enough to sell the performance. I zoomed in on the camera feed. "Thank you all for coming," Sloane told a cluster of guests. "This means so much to our family." Someone murmured condolences. Sloane dipped her head. Elena would have wanted this. She believed in strength, progress, legacy. I almost laughed. If hypocrisy were fuel, this house could power a small country. I set the phone down and checked my reflection in the dark window of the safe house. No dress, no jewelry, no disguise. Just me. Black military uniform, crisp, decorated. Every medal earned in places Sloane couldn't pronounce. Every ribbon tied to nights where survival mattered more than comfort. I ran a hand over the fabric. Not vanity, reminder. I wasn't walking into that house as a sister. I was walking in as consequence. A knock at the door. Special Agent Vance stepped in. FBI. Calm, focused. Eyes that had seen financial criminals fold in interrogation rooms. Behind him, 2 IRS agents, 1 Homeland Security investigator. All plain clothes, all quiet, all ready. "You're sure this is the time?" Vance asked. "They've completed the transfers," I said. "The evidence is locked. The signatures are verified. The footage is archived. The attempt on my life is documented." He nodded once. "Then we walk when you walk." I didn't need to say anything else. We drove in silence to the estate, parked down the road where headlights wouldn't draw attention. I stepped out, knee-stiff, wind cool on my face. Nothing like the mountain storm. This air was calm, deceptively calm. The agents moved behind me, not around me, behind, letting me lead. I didn't need a weapon. I already had one. Truth. We reached the front door. Music floated through the glass, laughter, glasses clinking, celebration. I put my hand on the handle, then I pushed. The door swung open. Conversation died instantly. 100 eyes turned toward me. Dresses rustled. Men froze mid-sip. The violinist's bow dragged one wrong note before stopping. Sloane stood near the center of the room, a champagne glass in her hand. It slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble. Her face drained of color so fast it looked like someone pulled a plug. Martha stared at me like she was seeing a ghost in a horror movie she didn't believe in until now. Grant's smile didn't vanish. It collapsed. I stepped forward. Every footstep echoed. Controlled. Even. Measured. No rush. No drama. Just inevitability. I reached the center of the room right beside the podium where Sloane had planned to give her inheritance speech. A microphone waited. I picked it up. "Good evening," I said. My voice carried clean and steady across the silent room. "I'm Elena Ramirez, the sister who was reported dead in a tragic accident." A few gasps. Someone covered their mouth. Someone whispered, "Impossible." Sloane didn't speak. She couldn't. I turned toward her. "You left me in a blizzard with a shattered knee," I said. "You took my phone, my ID, my money, and you drove away believing nature would finish what you started. No raised voice, no shaking. Just fact." Grant took one step backward, subtle, instinctive, predator recognizing a larger predator. I looked past Sloane to the guests. "Tonight my sister planned to accept control of an estate," I said, "while laundering millions through offshore accounts, while conspiring with a financial criminal, while declaring me dead to access assets that were never hers to touch." Whispers rolled through the crowd. Sloane finally found her voice, thin, fractured. "Elena, you're alive." I nodded once. "Yes." Then I raised my hand. Special Agent Vance and his team stepped through the doorway behind me. Badges out, eyes sharp, purpose clear. "Federal agents," Vance announced. "No one leaves." The room shifted from champagne celebration to courtroom waiting room in one breath. Grant bolted. 2 agents caught him before he reached the back hallway. Hands on shoulders, turn, restraint, cuffs. His expensive suit wrinkled instantly. No charm left, no clever words. Sloane backed away slowly, shaking her head like denial could rewrite reality. "This is a mistake," she said. "She's lying. She's unstable." Vance lifted a tablet and tapped the screen. Security footage filled the display. The mountain road, the crash. Sloane removing my belongings, closing the door, driving away. Audio played. "You've served your country long enough. Now serve your family." A murmur moved through the guests like a cold wind. Sloane's knees weakened. She grabbed a chair. Martha stepped forward. "Elena," she said softly, "we can talk about this. We can fix this." I turned toward her. "You called my attempted murder useful," I said. That conversation was recorded too. Martha's lips parted. No words came out. Vance nodded to another agent. More files appeared on the tablet. Transaction records, offshore transfers, digital signatures, Sloane's biometric authorization, Grant's routing schemes, a perfect chain. This Vance said is conspiracy to commit wire fraud, tax evasion, and attempted murder. You'll explain it in court. An agent stepped toward Sloane with cuffs. Sloane finally looked directly at me, her eyes filled. Not with remorse, with fury. "You always ruin everything," she whispered. I leaned slightly toward her. "You ruined yourself," I said. I just showed the room. The agent closed the cuffs on her wrists. Guests stood frozen, unsure whether to look away or keep staring. Phones came out. Cameras recorded. Whispers grew louder. A legacy destroyed in real time, on polished marble floors. Grant struggled once, stopped when he realized resistance only made things worse. Martha sat down heavily on a couch, hands shaking, and I stood in the center of the house I had grown up in. Breathing steady, knee-braced voice, quiet life, very much intact. The storm had not taken me, but it had delivered me exactly where I needed to be. Flashes from phone cameras bounced off the marble like tiny explosions. Guests who had arrived expecting champagne and gossip now had front row seats to a federal arrest. No one knew where to look. At me, at Sloan, at the agents, at their own hands, hoping they wouldn't be asked to testify. Agent Vance guided Grant toward the door. Grant didn't resist anymore. His confidence had drained out through the steel cuffs. He avoided my eyes. Parasites hate sunlight. 2 IRS agents moved Sloan next. She walked stiffly like her heels were suddenly too high for reality. Her chin stayed lifted. Pride was the last thing she owned. Martha wasn't arrested, not yet. She sat on the couch, fingers interlocked, lips tight, the look of a woman calculating what version of the story would keep her out of a courtroom. Vance turned to me. "You'll need to give a formal statement," he said. I nodded. He leaned closer, quietly. "And medical confirmation of your injuries." "I have records," I said. "Off-grid but time-stamped. And satellite pickup logs." He gave a small look of respect. "You make my job easy." That was the idea. Agents began escorting guests out in controlled lines. Names taken, phones checked. Some protested, some apologized, some avoided eye contact like guilt was contagious. Sterling appeared near the doorway holding a leather folder. He didn't look surprised, only satisfied. "Ms. Ramirez," he said, stepping beside me, "I believe this belongs to you." He handed me the folder. Inside was the estate's control certificate. Not sentimental, not decorative, a legal weapon. The guests were gone now. The music had stopped. The chandeliers still shone, but the warmth had drained from the room. Only the string quartet remained, confused instruments in hand, waiting to be dismissed. I looked around the house, the place where birthdays were staged like photo shoots, the place where conversations were performances, the place where love was measured in transactions. It suddenly felt small. Vance finished giving instructions to his team and turned back to me. "We'll need you at headquarters tonight," he said. "Recorded testimony, evidence submission, medical verification." "I'll come," I said. He nodded toward the door. "Car is ready." I glanced once more at Martha. She stood slowly, walked toward me, stopped just far enough away to keep pride intact. "Elena," she said, "we can still be a family." I looked at her, really looked. No tears, no apology, just negotiation. "You left me for dead," I said, then celebrated it. Her eyes hardened. "You don't understand what it takes to keep a family powerful." I almost smiled. "No," I said. "You don't understand what it takes to survive." I walked past her. Outside, cold night air replaced the heavy perfume of the house. The black SUV waited. No sirens, no spectacle, just quiet machinery of consequence. I sat in the back seat. Vance sat opposite me, another agent beside the driver. As the car pulled away, I watched the estate shrink behind us, a mansion built on inheritance, now wrapped in crime scene tape. Vance opened a tablet. "We'll go through your testimony step by step," he said. "Start with the mountain." So I did. I told him about the crash, the injury, Sloan taking my belongings, her words, the door locking, the car disappearing, my medical kit, the relay station, calling Miller, the black pickup, every detail clean, no embellishment, no drama. Then the evidence trail, the cameras, the recordings, the financial mirror channel, the transaction logs, Grant's offshore routing, Sloan's biometric signatures. By the time I finished, the agent beside Vance stopped typing. "Ma'am," he said, "this is the cleanest conspiracy case I've ever seen." "That's because they never knew I was watching," I replied. At headquarters, fluorescent lights replaced chandelier glow. Paperwork replaced perfume. Steel tables replaced marble. A doctor examined my knee, photographed the swelling, checked the splint marks, confirmed injury consistent with crash impact and exposure. Another piece locked in place. Hours passed. Statements recorded, evidence uploaded, files duplicated, chain of custody sealed. Near dawn, Vance handed me a coffee. "They won't walk from this," he said. "I know," I replied. He studied me for a moment. "You didn't come back for revenge," he said. "You came back for certainty." "Yes." Vance gave a single nod, a professional recognizing another. When the sun started to rise, I stepped outside the building. The sky was pale, clear, no storm, no snow, just quiet morning air. My phone buzzed. "Sterling, Ms. Ramirez," he said. By court order, you are now the sole legal executor of the estate and controlling authority of Ghost Logistics. No contest pending, no competing claims. Thank you, I said. One more matter, Sterling added. Your mother's residency rights have been suspended pending investigation. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Understood. When the call ended, I stood alone on the sidewalk, knee braced, shoulders squared, breath steady. The woman who had been left in a storm no longer needed rescue. She owned the ground she stood on. I signed the last page of my statement and slid the pen across the table. Agent Vance collected the documents, stacked them with mechanical precision, and locked them into a case that looked like it could survive a war. In a way, it had. Court appearance will be scheduled within 72 hours, he said. Given the evidence volume, there will be no bail for Whitlock. For your sister, bail is unlikely. Good, I said. Vance studied me for a moment. Most victims collapse after this part. I'm not most victims, I noticed. He walked me out of the building. The morning sun sat low and sharp like it had somewhere important to be. My knee complained with each step, but it held. That mattered more. A car waited. Sterling stepped out holding a tablet. Ms. Ramirez, he said. Media is already circling the story. Heiress returns from death. Family arrested. It's spreading fast. Keep my name out of interviews, I said. No sympathy tours, no inspirational survivor pieces. Sterling nodded. Understood. Your privacy remains protected. We drove back to the estate, not as a homecoming, as a transfer of property. Police tape wrapped around the front gate. Officers posted at the entrance. Neighbors stood at a distance, pretending to walk dogs while absorbing every detail. When I stepped out of the car, an officer recognized me and opened the gate without a word. Inside the mansion was quiet. No music, no guests, no champagne, just empty rooms and the faint smell of flowers that were already dying in vases. Sterling walked beside me. Your mother has been informed of her removal from the residence, he said. She will collect personal belongings under supervision this afternoon. I nodded. We entered the study, the desk where Grant had planned to steal millions, the chair where he had leaned back and said no one could trace him. The cameras still watched from corners, silent and loyal. I sat down and opened my laptop. Ghost Logistics waited. Dashboards, contracts, fleet reports, government compliance feeds. Everything I had built in stolen hours between missions, in quiet nights, in foreign bases, in borrowed time. I placed my fingerprint on the scanner. Access granted. The system recognized me like a heartbeat. Sterling cleared his throat. As executor, you now control all estate assets. The inheritance, the properties, the investment portfolios, and full authority over Ghost Logistics. Good. He hesitated. What are your instructions? I looked at the numbers. 50 million in estate funds. Another empire in logistics contracts worth far more. All of it sitting in my hands because my sister had tried to bury me under snow. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt precise. Liquidate 90% of the estate assets, I said. Set up a foundation for veterans with long-term care gaps. Mental health, housing, job retraining, full transparency. No administrative excess. Sterling blinked. 90%, yes. And the mansion, sell it. Sterling tapped notes into his tablet. Very well, and Ghost Logistics. That stays, I said. It will continue operating, but all executive bonuses are capped. No nepotism appointments, no family privileges. It runs on performance. Sterling smiled slightly. Your grandfather would have approved. Then he can rest. That afternoon I stood on the balcony overlooking the sea. Waves moved in steady rhythm. No drama, no applause. Just motion continuing, because that's what water does. Behind me, movers cataloged furniture. Officers escorted Martha through rooms she once ruled. She didn't look at me. I didn't look at her. We were finished long before the law said so. My phone buzzed. Agent Vance, Whitlock has requested legal counsel, he said. He's asking for a deal. Tell him the evidence package is already with the U.S. Attorney, I replied. He doesn't have leverage. Vance chuckled once. You're right, he doesn't. Another message arrived. This one from the detention center's automated system. Sloan Ramirez, initial hearing completed, remanded into custody. I deleted it. No satisfaction, no celebration, just closure. I leaned on the balcony railing. The wind carried salt and distance. I thought of the mountain, the cold, the locked car door, the moment she believed I would vanish and make her life easier. She had been right about one thing. My disappearance changed everything, just not in the direction she planned. I watched a seagull dive toward the water and pull back up, empty beak still flying. Some creatures survive storms, some learn to hunt in them. I turned back toward the empty mansion. There was still work to do. Systems to stabilize, foundations to build, contracts to oversee, lives to improve with money that would never again be used as a weapon inside this family. Not because I was merciful, because power without purpose is just another parasite. And I had already cleaned the house. The first time I walked through the empty mansion alone, my footsteps sounded unfamiliar. No staff, no family portraits, no flowers trying to look alive, just clean floors, bare walls, and the echo of a place that had finally run out of lies. The brace was off now. My knee still ached in cold weather, but it worked. Like me, scarred, functional, reliable. Sterling met me in the main hall with a stack of documents. Final property sale agreements, he said. Buyers are vetted. Funds will move directly into the foundation accounts. I signed each page. Not slowly, not ceremoniously, just efficiently. The house had never been a home. It had been a stage, and the show had ended. Outside, a moving truck waited. Workers carried out the last remaining furniture. Not antiques, not heirlooms, just expensive props for expensive people. I stepped onto the front steps one last time. Cameras across the street clicked quietly. Journalists behind barricades murmured my name. I didn't wave. I didn't speak. I didn't owe them a story. The SUV door closed behind me, sealing the mansion away like a file marked closed. We drove to the new headquarters. Not a palace. Not a private estate. A glass building with simple lines, clear windows, and no marble anywhere. Ghost Logistics already ran from here. Clean offices, quiet floors, people who worked, not posed. I walked through the lobby. A few employees looked up. Some recognized me. No gasps, no applause, just nods. Respect earned, not demanded. In the executive office, I stood by the window overlooking the city. Sterling set a small wooden box on the desk. Your grandfather left this for you, he said. I opened it. A single dog tag. His military ID from decades ago. A man who had built something real after leaving service. A man who saw something in me before anyone else did. I closed the box. I'll honor it, I said. Sterling smiled. You already have. He left me alone in the office. On the desk sat a folder labeled Veterans Foundation Initial Program Outline. Housing grants, trauma therapy, job placement, emergency medical funds. A system designed to catch the people who fell between patriotic speeches and actual support. I signed the final authorization. 90% of the inheritance gone in a clean transfer. Not charity, infrastructure. Money turned into safety nets instead of weapons. My phone buzzed. Agent Vance, sentencing recommendations are in, he said. Whitlock is looking at decades. No plea deal worth taking, and my sister attempted murder, financial conspiracy, fraud, multiple counts. She'll be in a federal facility. Long term. I leaned back in the chair. Thank you, I said. You did the heavy lifting, he replied. We just closed the door. When the call ended, the office felt bigger. Not lonely, just open. I took off my jacket and hung it on the chair. No uniform now, no armor, just a woman who had survived what was meant to erase her. That evening, I walked along the coastline alone. The sea moved without hurry. Waves came and broke, retreated, returned again. No grudges, no victories, just persistence. I thought of Sloane in a holding cell, staring at concrete walls instead of mirrors. Of Grant in a jumpsuit, learning that charm doesn't work on steel bars. Of Martha packing her belongings under supervision, realizing power built on betrayal has no foundation. I didn't feel joy about it. I felt resolution. Some people confuse revenge with rage, but rage burns out. Precision endures. I stopped at the edge of the water. Cold foam touched my boots. The wind pulled at my hair, salt on my lips. I had been left to die in a storm. I had returned with federal agents, and now I walked forward without needing to look back. Not because I forgave, but because I finished what needed finishing. I turned away from the sea and headed toward the waiting car, toward work that mattered, toward people who needed support instead of punishment, toward a future no one could steal. Before you go, let me ask you something. If someone who shared your blood betrayed you for money, would you walk away and start over somewhere else? Or would you build a life so strong that their betrayal became the reason you rose higher than they ever could? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Where justice doesn't whisper, it walks through the front door. I stood in my new office and scrolled through the employee directory of Ghost Logistics. Hundreds of names: engineers, analysts, drivers, security teams, accountants, dispatchers, people keeping supply lines moving across the world. Not a single one of them shared my last name. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people connected to me by choice, not by accident of birth. It felt lighter than I expected. Growing up, I was taught a simple rule: family first, family always, family above everything. It was said at dinner tables, at holidays, at funerals. It was repeated like a national anthem that no one was allowed to question. But no one ever explained what to do when the family itself was the danger. No one ever says that part out loud. I used to believe blood was permanent, unbreakable, automatic loyalty. Then my sister locked me in a car in a blizzard. Then my mother called my near-death useful. And suddenly that old family anthem sounded like a bad joke told too many times. Here's the truth I learned the hard way. Some families love you, some families use you, and some families will sacrifice you if it benefits them. DNA does not equal devotion. Shared holidays do not equal shared values. And childhood photos do not guarantee adult loyalty. I didn't lose a sister in the storm. I lost an illusion. When people hear stories like mine, they usually ask, "Why didn't you see it sooner?" The answer is simple. When manipulation is familiar, it feels normal. When you grow up being valued only for achievement, you learn to perform. When affection is conditional, you learn to earn it. When approval disappears, the moment you stop being useful, you blame yourself instead of the system. That's how toxic family dynamics survive. Not through violence at first, through training. Train a child to believe love must be earned, and they'll work themselves into exhaustion for people who would never do the same for them. Train a child to believe loyalty is mandatory, and they'll forgive betrayals that would end any other relationship. Train a child to believe family above all, and they'll ignore red flags that would be obvious if the same behavior came from a stranger. I was good at following rules. I was just following the wrong ones. The storm stripped all that away. When you're alone in the cold with a shattered leg and no phone, you don't have time for denial. You don't negotiate with reality. You don't romanticize the people who put you there. You see things clearly. My sister didn't hesitate. My mother didn't object. That told me everything I needed to know. Some people hear this and say, "But they're still your family," as if biology is a lifetime contract. I disagree. Family is not who shares your blood. Family is who shows up when you're at your worst. Family is who doesn't calculate profit in the middle of your pain. Family is who protects you when it costs them something. If none of that is present, what's left is just shared genetics and shared last names. That's not family, that's a registry. Walking away from that truth was not easy. Not emotionally, not socially, not culturally. People don't question why someone cuts off a toxic friend. But cut off a toxic parent or sibling, and suddenly you're the villain. Suddenly you're cold, ungrateful, dramatic. No one asks what you survived. No one asks what it cost you to stay. They just see the silence and blame the one who finally stopped speaking. Here's what I learned. Peace is more valuable than forced connection. Safety is more important than tradition. Self-respect matters more than approval from people who don't respect you back. When I took control of the estate and the company, I didn't just take back money and power. I took back the right to decide who has access to my life. I don't get calls from my sister now. I don't get passive-aggressive invitations. I don't get guilt trips disguised as concern. I get quiet. And quiet is underrated. In that quiet, I built something new. A workplace where loyalty is earned both ways. A foundation that supports people who were abandoned by systems they trusted. A life where no one holds my worth hostage. I don't hate my family. Hate keeps people connected. I simply remove them from my future. There's a difference. Some of you listening know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe your family never left you in a storm. Maybe they did something smaller. Constant criticism, emotional manipulation, financial control, guilt as a weapon, love as a bargaining chip. It adds up. And one day you wake up and realize you've spent years trying to earn a seat at a table that was never built for you. If there's one thing I would tell anyone standing at that crossroads, it's this. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to set boundaries that make others uncomfortable. You are allowed to choose distance over damage. You are allowed to build a family of your own choosing. Blood makes you related. Character makes you connected. I didn't lose a family. I gained a life that finally belongs to me. Every morning when I tighten the strap on my knee brace, I remember the sound of wind screaming through the Colorado mountains, not because I enjoy reliving trauma, but because it reminds me of something most people never learn until it's too late. Survival is not luck. Survival is preparation meeting reality. In the storm, I didn't pray for rescue. I didn't wait for someone to save me. I didn't waste energy asking, why is this happening? I assessed. I planned. I moved. And that mindset didn't start in the snow. It started years earlier in training and discipline, in learning to stay calm when everything around you falls apart. Most people think survival is dramatic. Cliffhangers, last-second rescues, miracles. Real survival is quiet. It's the unglamorous decision to carry a medical kit when no one else does, to save money when others spend, to learn skills when others assume they'll never need them, to think 3 steps ahead when everyone else lives one day at a time. Hope feels good. Preparation keeps you alive. In the storm, I had no phone, no ID, no money, and a shattered knee. But I had training, I had tools, I had the habit of staying calm under pressure. That's what kept me breathing. And here's the part that applies to real life, because most storms don't come as blizzards. They come as layoffs, illness, betrayal, divorce, financial collapse, sudden loss. No one announces them ahead of time. No one schedules them politely. They just arrive. And in those moments, people fall into 2 groups: those who prepared and those who hoped. Hope is not a strategy. I'm not saying optimism is useless. Optimism keeps morale up. But optimism without preparation is just a wish wearing a confident smile. Preparation is not paranoia. It's respect for reality. A financial emergency fund is survival gear. A second skill is survival gear. Knowing how to stay calm in crisis is survival gear. Not relying entirely on one person, one job, or one plan is survival gear. Most people don't prepare because preparation feels uncomfortable. It means acknowledging that things can go wrong. It means admitting that people can betray you. It means accepting that stability is never guaranteed. Denial feels safer, until it isn't. Another lesson from the storm: don't make decisions in panic. When the car crashed and Sloan walked away, I could have screamed. I could have wasted energy pounding the door. I could have spiraled into shock. But panic is expensive. Panic burns time. Panic burns oxygen. Panic burns options. Instead, I slowed down, checked injuries, used tools, looked for shelter, found communication. That same principle applied later when I planned my response. I didn't rush back in anger. I didn't confront immediately. I didn't explode emotionally. I gathered information. I built systems. I watched quietly. I waited until my position was undeniable. Most people lose not because they're weak, but because they react too fast. They send the angry text. They quit without a plan. They confront without evidence. They invest without research. They trust without verification. Reaction feels powerful in the moment. Strategy wins in the long run. I didn't defeat my sister because I was stronger. I defeated her because I was patient. She believed I was dead, so she exposed herself. She signed every document. She approved every transfer. She recorded every confession on camera. All I had to do was wait and let gravity do its job. This applies far beyond dramatic stories. If you're dealing with a manipulative boss, don't explode. Document, observe, build options. If you're in financial uncertainty, don't panic spend. Simplify, save, create fallback income. If you're in a toxic relationship, don't rush emotional confrontations. Prepare independence first. If you're facing sudden crisis, slow down. Assess, act with intention. Survival favors the calm mind. Another hard truth: independence is the strongest safety net. The reason I survived wasn't just training. It was that I had built something quietly on the side: Ghost Logistics. A system, a skill set, a source of power independent of my family. Most people put all their stability in one basket. One employer, one partner, one family, one income stream, one identity. And when that collapses, they collapse with it. Real security comes from diversification. More than one skill, more than one support system, more than one way to stand. Not because you expect betrayal, but because reality doesn't ask permission before changing. Finally, there's emotional survival. After betrayal, many people drown in bitterness. They replay conversations. They imagine different endings. They carry the weight forward into every new relationship. That's another storm, and it's just as dangerous. I didn't survive the mountain just to die inside afterward. So I chose something different. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just release. Some doors close violently. You don't rebuild them. You walk forward and build new ones. Survival isn't about becoming hard. It's about becoming clear. Clear about who you trust. Clear about what you tolerate. Clear about what you will never allow again. The storm didn't make me lucky. It made me awake. And once you wake up to your own strength, you stop waiting for rescue. You become the person who walks out of storms, not by miracle, but by design. The day I authorized the transfer of 90% of the estate, I didn't feel like I was giving something up. I felt like I was finally putting weight where it belonged. For most of my life, money had been a weapon in my family. A bargaining chip, a leash, a scoreboard. Whoever controlled the money controlled the narrative, the loyalty, the silence. I watched it shape people into versions of themselves they didn't even recognize. My mother measuring worth in net value. My sister measuring love in inheritance. Smiles built on numbers, not character. Then one day, money was almost the reason I died in the snow. That changes your relationship with wealth. Because when you've been left to freeze so someone else can get richer, you stop seeing money as a prize. You see it as a test. What you do with power is who you really are. Not when you're struggling, but when you finally hold the keys. I held the keys, and I had no interest in rebuilding the same machine that tried to crush me. People love to talk about success. Bigger house, faster car, private planes, invitations to rooms where everyone is pretending not to be afraid of losing everything. I had seen that room. I grew up in it. And I can tell you this, there is nothing impressive about a life built on fear of losing wealth. That's not power. That's anxiety wearing expensive shoes. Real power is waking up without needing to prove anything to anyone who once doubted you. Real power is not needing to control people to feel safe. Real power is knowing no one can take your life away again, literally or financially. When I created the Veterans Foundation, people asked the obvious question, why give away so much? They expected a sentimental answer, something emotional, something pretty, but the truth was simpler. I don't believe money should sit idle in accounts while people who serve their country sleep in cars. I don't believe trauma should be a private burden when systems profit from silence. I don't believe surviving a storm means anything if you don't build a shelter for others afterward. Giving away wealth wasn't generosity. It was direction. Money with no purpose rots. Power with no purpose corrupts. Success with no purpose becomes emptiness with better furniture. I refuse to repeat the cycle. Another truth I learned, legacy is not what you leave behind. Legacy is what keeps moving long after you're gone. My family believed legacy was last names on buildings and engraved plates on trophies. I built a different definition. If one veteran avoids homelessness, because of that foundation, that's legacy. If one person finds therapy before they break, that's legacy. If one young soldier learns they don't have to rely on family that doesn't value them, that's legacy. No marble required. No portraits on walls. Just lives quietly redirected away from storms. Some people listening might be thinking, that's nice for someone who had millions. What about the rest of us? Here's the thing. Power isn't only measured in money. Power is choosing how you treat people when you have the advantage. Power is breaking patterns you inherited. Power is deciding your children will grow up without the manipulations you normalized. Power is saying, this stops with me. Not everyone will run a foundation, but everyone has influence. In families, in workplaces, in friendships, in communities. You choose whether to use that influence to control or to build. You choose whether to repeat what hurt you or to redesign it. You choose whether your story ends where you started or becomes something better. I didn't win against my sister. I exited the arena she wanted to trap me in. I didn't beat my mother. I refused to become her. I didn't conquer my family. I outgrew them. And that is the quietest, strongest kind of victory. So when I stand in my office today looking at the city, Instead of a mansion, I know exactly who I am. Not a victim, not a survivor, not a warrior, just a woman who decided that the storm would not be the end of her story. It would be the reason her story finally began. And now I'll leave you with this question. If you woke up tomorrow with the power to rewrite your life completely, your family rules your financial habits, your definition of success, would you build the same world you live in now? Or finally design the one you've always deserved? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about breaking cycles, reclaiming power, and turning survival into purpose.
Final note. This story is a work of fiction created by artificial intelligence to heighten drama and emotion. But the valuable lessons we discuss are entirely real and continue to happen to many people every day. If this style isn't for you, that's perfectly okay. Please feel free to look for other content that better suits your needs.